Hello, and welcome to today's episode of the Breadwinner Podcast. I'm your host, Caroline, and I am the owner of an in-home sourdough microbakery, and I love to talk all things sourdough microbakery business. Today's episode is the first episode of the month, which means I get to recap last month, and we're going to review the month of June, talk about what worked, what didn't, what I'm learning, thinking about, and then kind of what I'm looking forward to in the coming month. I always love these episodes. If you've listened for a while, you know that these are some of my favorite because they help me think really critically about how I can improve, what I should lean into, and then I always try to kind of turn it around and add in some takeaways to make them practical for you as well. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see a little change of scenery today. My backup office in the garage, the AC is out, so I am in my husband's office. That is why you see bookshelves instead of mixers and ovens behind me. All right, let's go ahead and dive into June. As usual, I'll kind of share the landscape, what my current baking situation is. So I have scaled back in June. Before the summer hit, I was doing 2 porch pickups and 2 markets. So my market is every second and fourth Saturday, and I was doing a porch pickup on the opposite Thursdays. And I have been doing that since January of this year. Working really well, but knowing that summer is just going to be more full, I knew that I needed to step back a little bit. And so in the month of June, I did 1 final porch pickup in that first week to kind of transition my customers, let them all know the new rhythm. And then for the rest of the month, I only did the market. And I will continue that pace through the summer. And that's been working really well. It has the benefit of giving me enough breathing room on those off weeks to maybe mix up some muffins and get them popped in the freezer, some cookie dough, and even just run errands. Like this morning, I took my car in to get the fluids changed, and that's one of those things that goes on the back burner, and I put it off, especially when I'm baking every single week. And so I am resting, getting things done, and then by the time it's time to bake again, I am ready. It's not always possible to take a step back like that, but this has been a really helpful change to our rhythm just for the summer to, like I said, just really focus on family, knowing that as the fall comes around, it's just going to become more and more busy. So in the month of June, let's look at those numbers. I've been sharing my revenue numbers the last few months. So my total gross revenue, that's just the top line revenue, the sales that came in. This doesn't account for fees, packaging, ingredients, etc. Top line revenue was $4,395, and that came from the 3 bakes. So 1 porch pickup, that was mostly basics, that brought in $546, and then the 2 markets combined brought in $3,707. So overall, really good, considering it just came from the 3 bake days. I did hit a record this past Saturday market and broke $2,000 for the second time ever, and broke my previous record just by a few extra dollars. That felt good, but also that took a lot of work to get there. It was a really exhausting prep for that big market and something that I can't do on my own on a regular basis. I'm going to need support, and I will talk about that a little bit more. I did loosely track my time for those markets. The first one, I clocked roughly about 32 hours. From feeding my starter to breaking down, leaving the market, all in was right around 32 hours. And then the second was a lot closer to 40. And again, it was just a really big market. I brought a ton of product. I brought English muffins, which always extends my bake time and makes everything just take a lot longer. So if you're wondering how much time goes into this, I treat it like a full-time job, and I work full-time hours. But I will say I worked very similar hours when my scale was lower, but I have changed processes and optimized equipment to make it more possible to get a lot more done within around the same amount of time. So if you're listening and you're like, that was 32 hours for $1,700 feels impossible right now because you're putting in 30 hours just doing a fraction of that, know that as you increase your efficiency and equipment, maybe that's maybe up to a double oven or a bread oven, adding in a mixer, things like that, your output will increase without a whole lot of extra effort. That's kind of the the nature of this business, it works on an economy of scale. So you earn more as you produce more, and the effort to make 60 loaves becomes right around the same amount of effort that it would be to make 20. So if you're in those beginning stages, know that if you pay attention to your processes and your equipment and just continue to improve, that's what you can kind of look forward to a little bit. Okay, so let's talk about what worked in the month of June. We'll start by talking about top sellers. I was looking at my record top selling products in my Square reporting. I use Square for my point of sale system for my markets. And it continues to be original loaves, but those definitely drop off in the hot months, followed by sandwich loaves. English muffins are always a top seller. Muffins, just regular muffins, when I sell them in a pack of 6, they go really fast, especially on my pre-order menu. I don't really bring the larger packs to the market, but maybe I should try it. I haven't actually tried that. I usually just bring individuals. Focaccia sells well, and English muffins. English muffins are just a top seller. People snatch them up. I brought about 30 packs of 6 this week, and they go so fast. But because they are such a hands-on item, it just increases my prep and bake time so much. So I'm continuing to look for ways to optimize. I did set up 2 separate griddles this week, and that helped a lot, but it still is just a time suck. It takes so long to shape them individually. So as I look to expand into a bakery space, I will be exploring options for like a dough divider, something that can help me divide out the dough a lot more quickly so that I don't have to do that part by hand, because that's one of the biggest time commitments. Another big change that I have made that I've really been liking, and I kind of alluded to this in my Instagram story last week, but my inclusion loaves. So up until the last couple of months, I have always done my inclusion loaves the same size as my regular loaf, so 900 grams. And I charged $12 for my inclusion. That's what my market supports. Don't price based on my pricing, but for context, that's what I'm pricing mine at for a 900 gram inclusion loaf. So that's all the inclusions, whether that's cinnamon raisin, jalapeno cheddar, garlic rosemary, etc. I've had a lot of feedback from multiple people who say that those loaves, while they love them, they don't get through the whole thing before it goes bad. So they either have to freeze it, or they have to share it with someone, or they have to toss it. So I've had people ask for mini loaves, and I've brought them a handful of them here and there sometimes, and they always go the fastest. So for the last 2 markets, I have brought my inclusion loaves only in mini size. I didn't even bring any of the 900 gram ones. And they have been so incredibly popular. So I charged $7 each for my minis, which is what I have always done for minis, or 2 for $12. So people can get the same amount of bread as they did before for the same price if they like the larger size. So the price point still feels good. I'm happy with it. It's on par with my margins, and my customers are so thrilled with them. I've had so much positive feedback. They get to mix and match if they want to grab 2, or sometimes they grab 4, or they just grab 1, and there is that little bit of an upcharge for a single loaf that kind of offsets that extra labor, because it is a little bit more work doing the smaller 450 gram loaves versus the regular 900 gram loaves. But overall, it's worth it for me that they are just loving it. I'm going to keep that change around unless if people stop responding to it. Process-wise, I've changed things just a little bit from my previous inclusion loaf process, which was kind of what you would expect. I mix like regular, add in my inclusions during my stretch and folds, pre-shape, cold proof, and Abanatin. So here's where I've changed it. I still mix it the same. I still add my inclusions during my stretch and folds. But then when I go to pre-shape, I pre-shape into the 450 gram rounds. And then I put them in a dough proofing bin that's 18 inches by 26 by 3 inches. So they're real shallow. They stack onto each other so that each bin becomes the lid of the one below it. So you don't need an extra lid. And then I just have one lid for the top stack. I have 6 of them. And they fit into my 21 cubic foot Insignia fridge perfectly. So I pre-shape the rounds into the dough proofing box, cold proof in there. And then when I'm ready to bake them, I just pull out the rounds. And if there's only 12 in there, they don't stick together. They're easy to pull out And then I do a single caddy class to shape them into an oval batard shape and just kind of crimp the edges and bake them. I've done 2 methods for baking, either my regular open bake method, or I've actually been exploring using loaf pans for them as well. I don't prefer the loaf pans for my artisan breads. Typically, I like the more rustic batard shape, but when I use the loaf pans for the small 450-gram loaves, they still preserve the majority of that kind of oval rustic batard shape, but it has the benefit of easier cleanup if I use a liner and no leaking out onto my oven. I hate when my brown sugar inclusion from the cinnamon raisin leaks out onto my oven and gets smoky, or the cheese from my jalapeno cheddar. So using a liner and then having the pans also just makes it easier to rotate them, easier to put them in and out. So that has improved my process. Overall, it takes up the same amount of space in the fridge. It takes up the same amount of, I can bake the same number in the oven as I would otherwise. And it just is overall feeling like a much smoother process for my inclusions. So the big takeaway is be willing to revisit your processes. Sometimes what's working can continue, or sometimes if you're hearing the same thing from a customer enough, it's worth investigating how maybe you could make a change. And in this case for me, it was hearing so many times that they wanted the mini loaves that I just went ahead and implemented that across the board for the small inclusion loaves. Still haven't started doing minis for my regular loaves, and I may or may not explore that down the road. I really like having the larger size artisan regular loaves, but that is a cool change that I was excited to share with y'all. Another win this month, something that went well, was I posted in a local Facebook group, one of our most popular local moms groups, for the first time in a while. I just kind of followed their required format for a business post from my personal page, and tagged my business page on the first line. It was just a general post. I wasn't particularly selling anything. It was more of an introduction. So I posted a picture of myself and a couple of my breads and said, hey, I own Bluebird Bread Co. I sell sourdough bread up in Bulverde. You can find me at the market every second and fourth Saturday. I'll be out there this coming week. And a little teaser. I said I'm also in the process of opening a storefront up in the Bulverde area. So if you want to follow along and get updates, follow me on Instagram. And I had a lot of people come over on Instagram and follow along. And then a few new faces came out to the market too, which was really fun. It was kind of a good reminder for me, and hopefully for you too, that marketing doesn't have to be an every single week or an every single day thing. It had been at least a couple months since I had posted in a Facebook group, and that one was just got picked up in the algorithm, got a lot of traction and visibility, and it's just another touch point. People tell me that they see me on Facebook a lot, which comes from my early days when I was posting every week. And now that I've grown and kind of have a pretty regular customer base and don't need a lot of additional new customers right now, I've scaled back. But these occasional monthly or bi-monthly check-ins are just that extra touch where people are seeing me and recognizing me. And then when I do open a local space, I will ramp up that marketing and just become even more visible. But because they've had so much recognition and so many moments of seeing me here and there online already, they'll be that much more likely to engage with what I share. So if you haven't posted in a local Facebook group yet, or haven't done it very often, this is your reminder that just a thoughtful personal post, an introduction, let people know that you exist and where to find you, can go a really long way. Sometimes they're hit or miss. Sometimes the algorithm doesn't pick them up at all. But one friendly personal post of your face and who you are can go a long way. A couple other just little June highlights. I scored a 20-quart Hobart mixer on Facebook Marketplace for a steal of a deal. I'd been casually looking for them because I know that I'm going to need one when I open a bakery in the coming months. So I wasn't aggressively looking for one, but this one was at a price that was about half of what I'd been budgeting for. And so I couldn't pass it up. So we drove all the way up to Austin to pick it up. My sweet husband drove up there on Father's Day and grabbed it. And I am so thrilled. It's going to make things like muffins and cookie dough and brownies, things like that, a lot easier. Another June highlight was we kicked off the next round of the Breadwinner Inner Circle as well. So this is my small group coaching program, and this is our third round. It's always a wonderful group, and we do a weekly group coaching call. And then this round, I've added one-on-one strategy calls too, which has been really, really fun to get to know the bakers personally and have a deeper level of insight into their own bakery and their goals so I can support them that much closer. It is always so cool to see how the community in the inner circle just connects and supports each other, cheers each other on, and answers questions together. And everyone remarks that they are so glad that they signed up because having a group that really understands this unique business is so helpful. It can feel so isolating. You can't talk to your mom friends about your sourdough business because they just don't get it. But the inner circle friends get it. So I love it. I don't talk about the inner circle very often because it's kind of, I tend to hold my dearest things really close and not talk about them a lot. And the inner circle is usually kind of one of those things. But I need to share more because it's so cool. The next round is opening in September, so we've got a couple months. But if you're curious, if it sounds like something you might want to join when it opens up again, you can put your name on the wait list. I'll put the link down below. One more little milestone for June. I finally joined our local Chamber of Commerce. I've been meaning to do this for a while, and I just finally went ahead and did it, especially in advance of opening a local space. I wanted to get more and more involved and connected in the community, and this felt like a really great way to do it. Our community apparently has one of the most thriving chambers of commerce in the state of Texas. And so it's been cool to kind of get connected, and it does really seem like a supportive, engaged community. I've only been to one event so far, but I'm excited to be part of it. Okay, and now we've talked about what worked. Let's talk a little bit about what didn't go so smoothly. The biggest one for me is packaging. Honestly, this one just was the biggest drudgery this month, especially for the second market. The first one, my kiddos helped me a fair amount. I usually pay them some cash to help put labels on bags, but they were over at my mother-in-law's this last week. And so I did it all on my own. And it, especially since I had those English muffins, just took forever. I stayed up a lot later than I normally do, and it was a struggle. I've learned that once I pass a dozen or so bags of English muffins, that's kind of my threshold for like a comfortable time frame. And then above that, I know that my revenue is going to be a lot higher, but also the time that I'm putting in is going to be a lot higher. So it's kind of a catch-22, something I know I'm signing up for when I decide to do a lot of English muffins, but not something that would be sustainable long-term without some help. And that is the other big thing that I've known as a problem, but became even more obvious this month. And that is I've not rehired an assistant. I had an assistant for several months. And then since about February, I've been just doing it on my own. And a big part of that, honestly, is that I have just felt too busy to put in the time of hiring and interviewing and onboarding someone new. And I think maybe I've mentioned this once before in an episode, but that's really kind of a dangerous spot to be in, leading to burnout if you stay there too long, feeling too busy to bring on help and just feeling like it's easier to do it all yourself. Because in the long run, it's worth investing that time to get someone in helping you rather than just white knuckling through and doing it all yourself. Preaching to the choir a little bit. You all can hold my feet to the fire, and I'm hoping to bring someone on board for the month of July, at least a couple hours a week for my 2 markets to kind of start to learn the ropes, but definitely help with packaging and just kind of some cleanup and stuff like that. Ideally, this will be someone who can transition with me into the bakery space once that's open in more of a full-time role. So with that said, we'll kind of look ahead. July is going to look pretty similar to June in terms of 2 markets, no porch pickups. I will be bringing a fair amount of product, probably trying to be close to that $2,000 revenue number again. I will be trying to hire someone for 8 to 10 hours before each one. And the other focus of July is really just going to be rest and intentional time with family. We have a guest from Germany staying with us for the month of July. We hosted an exchange student for her junior year of high school last school year. And so it's been a year since she left, and she's back with us for the month of July. So fun. She just got here today. So we'll be spending lots of time with her, lots of time with family, and then I'll just have those 2 bake days. I'll be leaning into the best sellers that do really well in the summer. For me, that's sandwich loaves, English muffins, regular muffins, pizza crust, cookies. Maybe bring in something fun here and there, but paying really close attention to what I feel like I can realistically manage. Knowing that as things move toward the fall, life is going to get crazier and crazier, I want to soak up as much slowness as I can right now. So that brings us to kind of, as I wrap up the episode, a little bakery update. If you've been listening for a while, you've been along for the ride and you know that it kind of feels like it's taking forever. To me, it feels that way for sure. I've been pursuing a specific space since about February, and it's been a lot of like hurry up and wait, having various conversations, trying to figure out funding, trying to figure out renovation estimates, things like that. Part of it, I've been my own bottleneck, slowing down the process because I'm learning as I go. And I know that if I had been more informed, more clear on exactly what questions I need to be asking, I could have moved the process along faster. Some of it's been a little bit out of my hand, like waiting for a contractor to get back to me. But I'm also learning, apparently, you really need to stay on top of a contractor to get them to give you what you need, especially with a small job like mine. So, big update, the space I've been pursuing is looking like it might fall through. But honestly, it's also looking like that might be a blessing in disguise. So, when I got that news, I started, after I cried for a minute, started looking for plan B, and I found 2 other spots in our area that could actually be better in the long run. More space, more of a long-term solution, less of the space that I was looking at was cute, but also tiny and was really going to kind of limit my capacity. So I'm excited to go visit those spaces in the coming week. I've got a realtor on board with me now, so I have someone in my corner who knows what they're doing, so I don't have to figure things out as I go. I should have done that from the beginning, but hindsight's 2020. So all of these things that I'm learning, I am keeping track of, recording so that I can pass them along to you as well. So that if any of you, I know I've connected with a handful of bakers who are kind of in the same stage as me, where they've started home-based and are now looking to open a small storefront. And so I'll be able to hopefully help you skip some of the learning curves as I share what I've been learning. So over on the bakery front for me, I'm going to be checking out a couple spaces next week, hopefully making a decision really soon and launching a community crowdfunding campaign actually, rather than working with an investor to fund out the kind of phase 2 of the build out. And it feels really perfectly aligned to have the community be a part of this rather than just a private investor. I'm really excited and optimistic. Again, I'll keep you posted, I'll keep you updated, and I'll be sharing what I learn along the way too. I really do believe, this is a little bit of a tangent, but I believe that home bakers are here to stay. I believe that these bakers that are running these flexible businesses out of their home are here to stay. But I also think that this movement that we've seen, there's kind of this next wave coming along where some of the home bakers are now opening small storefronts, community-oriented, strategic spaces that uplift the community, make real food more accessible, and provide opportunities for some of these home bakers in the states that allow wholesale. I think it'd be so cool. Personally, I want to connect with a baker who can wholesale bagels for me. I don't want to do the bagels, but if there's a local baker to me who does fabulous sourdough bagels, I want them to sell in my shop. That excites me so much because I get to provide new opportunities to home bakers, and we get to provide real food to the community, provide workshops, provide the space for connection, and everyone gets to be lifted up and thriving. It's not a competition. I'm not going to come in and open my space and put all these other bakers out of business, but rather give them even more opportunity to thrive. And I think that is where we can see a lot of these small bakeries coming and playing a role in the community too. So excited about that. Again, I'll be continuing to share kind of my vision and what's coming on this front, but also continue to support the home baker as well. All right, friends, I'm going to wrap up. It is time to go play Monopoly with the family. Wish me luck. My 8-year-old is a fierce competitor. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you love these behind the scenes episodes. If you have questions, if you have insights, if you want to share what worked for you or didn't work for you in June, I would love to hear it. If you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment down below or send me a message on Instagram. Take a screenshot of the show and tag me so I can see on Instagram. I love seeing those posts too and resharing when I catch them on time. And if you're feeling like you need community and want to connect with people who get it, don't forget that you could put your name on the Inner Circle waitlist to find out when it opens back up in September. I would love to support you in there too. All right, friends, I will be back in a week with another episode. But until then, happy baking. Thank you so much for being here.